Good afternoon. Welcome to this sanctuary of the Spirit. We are here today in the belief that every life deserves to be acknowledged and understood as best we can, and every death deserves to be laid to rest in peace and in love. This ritual that we're doing today is not only for Julie, whom we've lost, but especially for those of us who are still alive. We need the comfort of each other's presence and compassion. We need to say goodbye to Julie and offer her our blessings as best we're able. And it's hard. It's hard. We who are helpers in our nature and our work, to face a mystery like Julie and our inability to truly understand what happened. And it's hard, soulfully hard, to continue living with the love we have for someone whom we could not reach, whose tragedy we could not prevent. So our emotions as we gather on this occasion are complicated. Because Julie was complicated. Joyous and interesting and adventurous and curious and loving, and also sad and troubled and long-suffering through no fault of her own. You may be feeling remorse or anger or sadness for things left unsaid or neglected or unresolved. You may be fantasizing about how things may have turned out differently. What if this or what if that? You may find yourself full of maybes or shoulds or if onlys. It is disquieting to have these questions that we will never, ever have real answers for. And yet, even at times like this, if we will open our hearts to the truth of all that we are, it is possible to see our independence, our interdependence with each other more clearly. For we have all, every one of us, received gifts of the mind and the body and the spirit that are not of our own making. And here's a great spiritual truth for an occasion like this one. And that is that our mourning, our grief, our memories will be exactly as conflicted or exactly as wholesome and accepting as the relationship we had with Julie. Precisely. Here's another great spiritual truth. For most of us, the way forward does not come from pretending that everything's okay. The way forward goes through something else. Something that begins in tears and anger and anguish and bewilderment and still remembers the love and the laughter and the music and the magic spark that was Julie. Because life is like that. Painful and beautiful. Tears and laughter. Life and death. As members of the human family, we have to do both. We have to tell the old stories without worry or apology and throw our heads back and laugh. Relive those moments that gave us life. Laugh out loud at the sheer absurdity of all our pretensions and foibles in this world, in this life. Even as we acknowledge that Julie's passing has left a hole in our hearts. And that her absolute absence from this world hurts. It hurts. Let the gifts of courage and wisdom come to each of us and grow among us today and in the days to come. May we be gentle with each other in these glorious and troubled times. The great Rabindranath Tagore wrote, "What will you give when death knocks at the door? The fullness of life, the sweet wine of autumn days and summer nights, my little hoard gleaned through the years and hours rich with living. This will be my gift when death knocks at the door."
Hi, I'm Isabel, Julie's niece.
I'm Dylan, Julie's nephew.
I'm going to begin with the poem. May your trails be crooked, winding, lonesome, dangerous, leading to the most amazing views. May your mountains rise into and above the clouds. May your rivers flow without end. Meandering through pastoral valleys, tinkling with bells, past temples and castles and poets' towers into a dark, primeval forest where tigers belch and monkeys howl. Through miasmal and mysterious swamps and down into a desert of red rock and blue mesas, domes and pinnacles and grottos of endless stone, and down again into vast, ancient, unknown chasm, where bars of sunlight blaze on prolift cliffs, where deer walk across the white sand beaches, where storms come and go as lightning clangs upon high crags, where something strange and more beautiful and more full of wonder than your deepest dreams awaits for you beyond the next turning of the canyon walls.
Walking in my sleep, counting troubles instead of sheep. Where the years went, I can't say. I just turned around and they've gone away. I've been sifting through the layers of dusty books and faded papers. They tell a story I used to know, and it was one that happened so long ago. It's gone away yesterday. Now I find myself on the mountainside, where the rivers change direction across the great divide. Now I heard the owl calling softly as the night was falling, with a question, and I replied, but he's gone across across the borderline. He's gone away yesterday. Now I find myself on the mountainside where the rivers change direction across the great divide. The finest hour that I have seen is the one that comes between the edge of night and the break of day. It's when the darkness rolls away. It's gone away yesterday. Now I find myself on the mountainside where the rivers change direction across the great divide. It's gone away yesterday. Now I find myself on the mountainside where the rivers change direction across the great divide. Where the rivers change direction across the great divide.
Here we are again. Good afternoon. Thank you all so much for coming. I'm Mark Carey, Julie's oldest brother. Julie and I were at opposite ends of the chronological spectrum among Carey children. I was 7 years older than her. And during her key teenage years, which some of you shared, I was already out of home and gone. While there are chronological differences between us, Julie and I did share a few key passions: love of the outdoors, love of travel, and love of folk and bluegrass music. A wise man once told me that our job in a memorial service is to tell the truth with love in our hearts. With that in mind, I'd like to share a few brief memories with you today about these passions. It is in fact accurate to say that my very first awareness of Julie took place in the wilderness. The summer before she was born, my parents took my brother Jeff and I on a backpacking trip to Piney Lake up above Vail, along with several other families. I thought I was in heaven, and remember being deeply disappointed to learn that our family would have to pack out early because of my mother's condition. That condition turned out to be Julie. I had another sister on the way. This condition soon became all the more real as Julie was a bit of an early delivery, and my mother had to spend a couple extra days in the hospital while Julie was in an incubator. Back then, of course, it was unseemly to allow kids into the hospital. So my father brought us down to the lawn outside my mother's hospital window, and she floated notes down to us on paper airplanes all afternoon. Fast forward to the time I was in college, and I discovered, excuse me, a lifelong passion for backcountry skiing and hut trips. At that point, Julie was also an avid downhill skier. I was sure that she would also love backcountry skiing, and this would be an activity we could enjoy together. I wanted to get her something for Christmas to promote this notion, but as a budget-constrained college student, I could only afford a pair of skins. I think she thought I was a little crazy when she opened the present and exclaimed, "But Mark, I don't even have skis for these." While the conversion was not immediate, it was soon evident that my intuition had been correct, and indeed, She loved backcountry skiing every much as I did. One of our very first backcountry trips together was to the Green Wilson Hut in the Alfred E. Braun hut system up above Aspen. We were with several other friends, and there was a fair amount of competition in the group to demonstrate enthusiasm by carrying the heaviest load in your pack. It was about a 5.5-mile ski into the hut, and the final approach involves a series of steep switchbacks. A couple of switchbacks in, Julie dissolved into tears, saying, "It's just too hard. I can't go on." I skied back to see what was the matter and perhaps what items I could take from her pack to lighten her load. To my amazement, she had grabbed one of our heaviest communal items, a large box of wine, and stuffed it in the very top of her pack. Needless to say, offloading that made the climb much easier, and she had no problem the rest of the trip. Throughout her life, Julie traveled extensively, and I have been lucky enough to do the same. While we shared a few of the same exotic destinations, such as the Soviet Union and countries in South and Central America, we did not, on the whole, travel much together. The one notable exception was a 10-day trip to Ireland. Julie had just been in England on a Carolyn Jones drama trip, high school drama trip. Perhaps a few of you were there as well, while I was at the tail end of my 8-month post-college trip backpacking around Europe. As one would expect, Julie's trips was highly structured with lots of activities, very planned, while mine was the exact opposite. I still remember the first day after meeting up on a train from London to Dublin. Julie asked me, "Mark, where are we going to stay tonight?" I said, "I don't know. We'll figure it out when we get there." That was one she was not completely satisfied with. Yet for 10 days, we had a lovely time, taking buses and hitchhiking around Southern Ireland. After Dublin, we headed south to County Cork, and each got to kiss the Blarney Stone. We traveled out to the spectacular Dingle and Beria peninsulas and spent a day biking around the Muckross Lake in Killarney National Park. We each got an Irish sweater, and not surprisingly, both discovered a passion for Guinness. We enjoyed our share of pub crawls and got a kick out of the fact that a few people, or that sometimes we were mistaken for honeymooners. By the end, I felt satisfied that Julie had enjoyed an immersive travel experience, a passion she maintained for the rest of her life. It was soon after this trip that Julie and I discovered we shared another passion, folk and bluegrass music. Julie always affectionately referred to this loosely defined genre as Marky music. I took her to see John Prine and Jerry Garcia in person, and we attended at least one Telluride Bluegrass Festival together. I still remember crossing paths with John Cowan of the Newgrass Revival on the path down from Bridal Veil Falls. While I have maintained this passion throughout the years, try to get through this next sentence. Julie literally won the lottery when she met the extraordinary musician and love of her life, Andy Hutchison. That musical genre that was our shared passion was, of course, essential to Julie and Andy's identity in their beloved Dolores community. I would be remiss in this remembrance if I did not mention, if I can, what an extraordinary auntie Julie was, both for my kids, Dylan and Emma, and my nieces, Isabel and Allie. Throughout their childhoods, Julie always showed up and was a huge presence in their lives. Julie took Dylan on various backpacking trips, and rock climbing, and river trips. And Emma was fortunate enough to be able to go on a week-long river trip with Julie and her river guide friends. Isabel and Allie had many similar experiences. Then, of course, there was the epic 100-mile backcountry bicycling trip on the White Rim Trail that we took with her complete with a dramatic desert rainstorm tent story. Ask me for details later. I don't think it's a stretch to say that the passionate love for the outdoors that is so deeply imbued within all four kids is in no small part to Julie's influence. As most of you know, the last couple of years were extraordinarily difficult and challenging for Julie in many ways. As I was working on these words of remembrance, I came across a quote from Edward Abbey, a literary hero of both mine and hers. The places most sacred to her, the desert landscape and river waters flowing through sandstone canyon walls, are central to his writing. It is my most fervent wish that Julie is now finally at peace, and I believe these words offer a glimpse of the mysticism and wonder that drew Julie to the desert in the first place and provided her with spiritual sustenance throughout her life. With that in mind, I'd like to close today with Abby's meditation on wilderness and desert rivers from his book, The Serpents of Paradise. "Come with me," the river said. "Close your eyes, quiet your limbs, and float with me into the wonder and mystery of the canyons. See the unknown and the little known. Look upon the stone gods face to face. See Medusa. Drink my waters. Hear my song. Feel my power. Come along and drift with me toward the distant, ultimate, and legendary sea." Thank you.
Hi. I first met Julie in Canada when Ann and I moved to Vancouver to actually do film at the Vancouver Film School. I remember she looked at me, sized me up, and somewhere in those pretty early hours, she gave her approval, and it was very, very gratifying to feel that I had Julie's approval. Because very quickly also I realized just how close Ann and Julie were. So one memory from Julie's very early on, the word dudes. We were dudes. That was our thing. No formality, no pretense, just dude. And with that came a lot of laughter, a lot of honesty, a kind friendship that doesn't need tending. The bond was clear and lasted for years. Juliet also had no patience for self-pity. If you started down that road, if you leaned in with complaints and grievances, she had a remedy. At least for me, she did. She'd look at you sideways and say, "Save it for Oprah." And somehow I did. Because Julie had a way of reminding you that your issues, your problems, were really pretty small, and really what she wanted you to be is grateful in this world for what you did have. That whatever was bothering you that day was just not that important. I remember the years she traveled to Venezuela and Ecuador with Jack, two adventurers following the pull of the world. In Ecuador, they stayed with my Aunt Consuelo, and every morning without fail, the two of them would hold what they called a seminar. Coffee in hand, Andes stretching beyond the window, ideas tumbling all over each other. Julie and Jack and Consuelo in the highlands making sense of the world before breakfast. These are a few images that make me think of Julie. Another image is her passion for birds. And in many ways, I kind of see Julie as a form of bird. One of a bird of flight, eagles, hawks, storks, condors. You see, Ecuador is also known as the land of the condor, riding thermal currents over Asia peaks, tracing the sky that has watched over the land for centuries. I think of Julie like that condor, unhurried, generous, defiant, alive, rising to the moon and the stars. And I could go on and on about stories of Julie. But one prayer actually often brought up here by the Reverend Mike Moran that we use here as a benediction especially reminds me of Julie. I can hear her voice when it is said. And this prayer is her benediction. It's be noble, for you are made of the stars. Be humble, for you are made of this earth. Be kind, for you are made of each other. And now, dude, you may spread your wings wide, ride those thermal winds high, cruise over rivers and valleys, and look down upon us with a smile. And until we meet again, dude.
Hi, everyone. I'm Julie's sister, Anne, if you don't know me. I think I know everybody here. And I just want to say thank you so much, everybody, really, for being here. I want to invite everyone to please feel comfortable as the evening goes on, to share our love and stories of Julie openly, informally, and spontaneously, because I do believe that that is the best way to help heal our hearts and the best way to honor our Julie. And I had originally wanted to gather outside in our backyard because I know that being outside and in nature was sacred to Julie. And as Andy put it, it's his church. However, our beautiful church is really the next best thing. And to be in this space whose community works nonstop to make the world a better place, lives by these principles you can read in our banners, that centers love in everything, and a space where the focal point of our worship services is the mountains, red rocks, aspen trees, blue skies, and wildflowers. Feels just right. This is one of the things I've been most afraid of these last 3 months. To try to articulate what Julie meant to me. I felt completely paralyzed, like I could never put it into words. But a couple of weeks ago, I decided that whatever I said today would be completely inadequate and exactly enough. So here goes. What was it like being sisters with Julie? It was everything. It was home, belonging, and meaning. I am forever blessed to have had a sister who was a best friend through childhood, adulthood, and always. There were so many facets of our relationship, and I'll touch on some of them. Companions. As a little sis, she followed me everywhere, and she was so shy she depended on me to talk for her. She'd whisper in my ear, and I'd tell others what she needed. I think we did everything together, from dress-ups and backyard games to Scottish Highland dancing, gymnastics, swim team, tennis lessons, walking to school together, and running around with the neighborhood friends. With our brothers busy doing bigger kid things, we were kind of inseparable. We were friends. We had everything that comes with a close friendship: love, affection, admiration, trust, reciprocity, and respect. Someone with whom to share your deepest sorrows and darkest secrets, to celebrate with, cry with, and then to laugh with, to share dreams, fears, and experiences with. For decades, one of us would text, "Coffee 30?" And a few minutes later, we'd be on the phone together, catching up about everything going on in our lives. In high school, she bravely went on the mountaineering Outward Bound trip that I chickened out on. And from there, moved on to rafting and kayaking. She took me on many rafting trips. I drove out to Utah to visit her at the Outward Bound base camp. I visited her in Santa Fe when she first lived in Dolores 25 years ago. We had tons of adventures together, driving behind her before turning our cars to go off in opposite directions. Whoever was in front waved the rear windshield wiper, and whoever was following waved the front one. When one of us left on a trip or moved somewhere, we promised we'd keep the home fires burning. We even had a sister talk, a special dialect that no one else speaks, that we called sister speak. We were the kinds of friends who counted on each other for everything, loved each other with our whole hearts, saw each other through ups and downs, or as we would say in sister speak, shrew shik and shin. Travelers, we backpacked in France together in college when I was 20 and she was 18. Everyone we met asked if we were twins. People have continued asking that for our entire lives, even in this last year. They said our voices were the same, our gestures were like mirror reflections. A few years and chapters later, she met me in New Zealand and we rented a van and explored all over. A few years after that, she came to Vancouver, where Basil and I were living, and dubbed each other Dude. A few years later, she joined me and Basil at his family's house in Ecuador for the holidays. She accompanied us and little Isabel and Allie to Nicaragua, later on a trip to Canada. And from the time they were born, she was always involved, like Mark said. She was always the best, most devoted sister and auntie. And I also want to remember the amazing trip that she planned for our whole family after Jeff died. And we went for 8 days on the San Juan, coordinated by Julie and other friends with their rafts. And it was the most healing time. And she knew that. That's why she did it. We were roommates. We shared a tiny house in Boulder with our crazy cat who brought snakes into the house and a loose door that one day fell off onto the sidewalk. And we were colleagues. She spent a summer working at the magazine where I worked. We cooked dinners together, raided each other's closets every day, and laughed at each other's escapades. Husbands. Yep. We were so close for a time we actually called each other husband, figuring we were each other's person until we met our life partners. Adventurers. All of our youthful adventures led to a special birthday tradition. Each year, in between my October birthday and her November birthday, we gave each other an adventure. Skydiving in New Zealand, hot air ballooning in Santa Fe, hot springs, float tanks, horseback riding, and rafting, to name just a few. Supporters. I was supported by her in everything I did, and I supported everything she did. Projects, passions, dreams. We got behind everything the other one cared about and championed it. Warriors. We fought together for the things we cared most about. We gave each other strength and tag-teamed the hardest things imaginable and helped each other through the most difficult times. And we fought together like the fiercest warriors the last 2 years of her life, when this illness started to emerge and we realized the severity of it. We fought with determination, tenacity, and courage. We would have moved a mountain rock by rock if that's what we were told it would take to get her through. Balance. The word that defines our relationship is balance. She was courageous in ways that I wasn't, and I was courageous in ways that she wasn't. She was sensitive in ways I wasn't, wise in different ways, and I was sensitive and wise in ways she wasn't. We shared with each other the things in our lives that we had, and the other didn't. It felt easy, effortless, like harmony, like equilibrium. Sister is what we called each other, always. Sister has been one of the most beautiful words to me. Sister will always be one of the most beautiful words to me. As life unfolded, we traveled different paths, often lived in different places, but it always felt like we were traveling through life together. That no matter what or where, we would always be connected, be balanced by our connection, be strengthened by our connection. And I wrote a poem in college that expressed this, feeling then at age 20 what I now have a more complete understanding of, and what actually articulates quite perfectly what I've been trying so clumsily to say. The poem is called Sister. A word that felt then and feels now sacred to me. Like something imbued with a kind of magic. One of the most precious gifts life gave me. I'll share it with you now. Sister. This song is of symmetry, a balancing act that takes no skill. The structure we share is sheer inheritance. You exist next to me, and I to you, a next to that is just within. Syllables that share their sound in one word of singular meaning. Sister. We are haiku. There is no excess. You answer the now and then, necessity met. I have spoken your silences. We named each other in swimming blue water. I helped you to walk when it was what you did best. Your notes will always find harmony with mine. We once watched each other laughing through trains that flickered to a halt to take us in opposite directions. Sleeping in spoons, epiphany falling in comfortable waves, echoes of self. Stilling the heart's soliloquy, we speak in trust without hesitation, knowing you have existed in every moment. Toss us upwards. Toss our dreams and plans into the chaos. Wherever we land in this world, it will always be close. Whatever space or time spills between us, the song will always be sung in simple harmony.
Thank you, Ann, Baz, family, Mark. Thanks for that, Ed, Abby. That was one of Julie's favorites, and mine too. And it's very fitting. Thanks for the music, and thanks for everyone for being here. My name's Andy. I'm going to try to read through my scribbles here. So bear with me, but I'm so glad you're all here. What a beautiful day. I call this
Julie and Andy, a love story. Julie and I met at a friend's backyard party on the banks of the Dolores River in 2020. It was the pandemic and a chance to hang out with friends in the sense of social distance practice. There was a campfire, a bit of live music, and a few puppy dogs running around and familiar faces, plus a few folks I hadn't met. One was a brown-haired, brown-eyed girl with a glowing smile. Julie was her name after inquiring, and she had just moved back into town, into Dolores, after a 20-year hiatus. Having recently fled back over the border from spending most of the winter in Baja when COVID-19 reared its ugly teeth. She was easy, comfortable to chat with, and we shared many commonalities, being music, outdoor pursuits, education, travel, animals, etc. She introduced me to her new puppy, Shashi, a recent rescue from Navajo Indian Reservation, and it wasn't long before Shashi was in my lap as we sang and played songs around the campfire. Shashi is a Navajo word for bear, she told me. A Bruce Springsteen song surfaced and Julie chimed right in. Her song voice and laughter were intoxicating. It was a comforting evening after most of us all isolated due to the pandemic, and I left the party feeling uplifted as if my feet were a bit off the ground, seeing familiar friends and meeting Julie. We ended the night setting a date to float the river. She had been looking for a kayak companion, and I told her I had a boat and would love to go. A date was set for a week or so later, but flows were a bit too minimal for the Dolores. We decided to travel over to the Animas River over in Durango, as it had more water to float our boats. The night before our planned float, a fortuitous monsoon storm happened, and the Animas drainage, bringing that river up to a high enough level to float a larger boat, and I offered my dory, a boat I named Cottonwood. We would have longer conversations, and Shashi could ride along, so we left the kayaks at home. The day flew by on the river, exchanging stories of both growing up in Colorado, skiing, hiking, boating, and mutual friends in the outdoor world, work and play, music, songs, travel stories, and future plans, etc. A few family stories filtered out as well. After running a couple of rapids and dodging rocks, we found a sliver of shade on the side of the river for a snack and a puppy break. I had already become enamored with Julie's stories and humor, spiced by a bit of cynicism and punctuated by her boyish laugh. As we pushed back out to finish our float, a thought just spilled out of me, stating, "Should we just keep going all the way to the sea?" Julie didn't hesitate to say, "Sure." The Cottonwood floated above every rock from there to the takeout ramp, feeling like we were in a hovercraft. I truly did not want to stop, and I sure got the same feeling from Julie. That was the start. We called the Summer of Love. It was a different time register of enjoying our budding acquaintances and seemed instantly like we had known each other for years. Where did you come from and where have you been? Feelings were mutual from both sides. Laughter was the dominant form of expression for us most of the time. If one Googled soulmates at one point, I'd say we were the definition. Hikes in the mountains with dogs, boating and camping in the desert, playing music, and simply blissing out being together became our norm. Julie invited members of her family down, and I so enjoyed meeting loved ones and introducing her to my family later as the seasons unfolded. It was such joy introducing Julie to more of my posse of friends as well in boating, music, teaching circles around Dolores, Flagstaff, etc. There was obviously a strong thread of support that ran in Julie's family, and it filled my heart to be welcomed in. Separations were painful when I would head out to guide for 2 weeks as they opened back up the Grand Canyon National Park for boating and visitation. Julie secured a teaching job in Cortez for the winter, and I had plenty of work to do in my shop. We ran, all caps, to each other when we'd been separated, long or short periods, right up to the end. Julie moved into my house in spring of 2021, and we had fun sprucing up the place with fresh paint, appliance, upgrades, artwork, etc. It was so comfortable supporting each other, and Shashi tolerated getting to know me. My shared dog, Sierra, helped with the welcoming. The daily pup walks helped with bonding and love of being outside, cross-country skiing in winter, and more river trips. We loved our shared values and commonality of priorities and what happiness was all about. Laughter continued to dominate most of our conversations, be it work or play. We fixed up and valued our toys room with shelves and Julie's organizing skills, which I severely lacked. We found we had enough gear to start an outdoor exchange store, and being able to locate stuff was key for all the adventures that ensued for the next several seasons and years. Every tent, dry bag, life jacket, old Coleman stove, mountain bikes, kayaks, ski poles, packs, etc., seemed to hold many well-used stories. Julie helped me build a small wooden dory, termed Doriak, that was a solo version of the larger boat like Cottonwood. Julie decided we should name her Greta, after Greta Thunberg, the young environmental activist. It seemed fitting. We finished her and then christened her on a Yampa River trip in the spring of 2022. We had been invited by some of Julie's old Outward Bound friends, etc. Some family members were also invited, Emma and Allie, and it was a lovely trip. Julie truly fell in love with Greta, rowing her most of the time, and it was obvious that Greta was her boat. She had many more joyful floats in Greta for the next several boating seasons. We enjoyed making to-do lists, be it home projects, travel plans, and holidays and families. Many things were checked off, from a Maine salmon river trip in Idaho to lower Colorado River adventures, Baja sea kayaking, skiing, hot springing, climbing Mount Pedernal in New Mexico where her mom's ashes were scattered, etc. Yampa River with friends and family, San Juan River, Grand Canyon, Dolores River trips. Music jams and festivals, celebrating our birthdays, daily doggy walks were some of our favorite times. We were both outside in the best church of being in the elements. We had a saying, got to keep that Colorado edge, when it meant roughing it a bit, work or play. Other sayings that often repeated were, get out and make yourself useful. Hoorack, her pops Yahoo. Many of you know that. And of course, let's go all the way to the sea. Whenever we went boating. And go where the rocks aren't. Another one of my favorites was, you have the biggest heart in the world. Also, I missed you, usually several times every day. Good night, I love you. Julie was truly the soulmate that I was lucky enough to spend 6 short years with. Her compassion for humanity and caring for others outweighed anything else in her realm. She was a teacher of goodness and making a difference in one's life. She rarely had a harsh judgment on anyone or voiced negative things. She just tried to understand and create change for the better. She also taught me the important lesson of simply paying attention. And then also have faith and trust in humanity and yourself. I will never forget her boyish laughter, huge heart, and that huge smile when she was kayaking, dancing, and listening, playing, singing to music. Her touch was genuine and unforgettable. I won the biggest prize of a lifetime with our time together. And to sum it all up, I think I need to build another boat, and I think I know what to name it. Thank you.
Among the wildflowers, you belong in a boat out at sea. Sail away, kill off the hours. You belong somewhere you feel free. Run away, find you a lover. Bright and new. I have seen no other who compares with you. You belong among the wildflowers. You belong in a boat out at sea. You belong with your love on your arm. You belong somewhere you feel free. Trouble and worry, you belong
This is a time for anyone here who would like to share a memory or a thought or a reflection on this occasion. And because we are streaming to folks who could not be here, I'm going to ask that if you'd like to share a memory, a thought, or a reflection, please come on up here and take the microphone and just sort of generally face that way so that the cameras can see you. Not to put you on the spot, but would anyone like to share something? I know, in fact, I am absolutely positive there are hundreds of stories in this room, some of which really need to be told.
Who am I looking at? I'm Nina. I've known Julie for a good part of 30 years. The other part, she traveled. And so I knew her because of her Uncle Richard. He was my best friend and my boss for 28 years. And that's how I knew her and Jeff and all you guys for so long. But Julie was a great person. I think the dude came from me. It was Bummer Dude. Bummer Dude. It was from the far side when you have the birthmark on your side. But I think I started the dude thing with her a long time ago. But I wrote something I'd like to read. Julie, forever embraced within my heart, a wild and beautiful soul unleashed. Your kindness and generosity has set you apart. For those of us you left, it will no doubt be famine or feast. Thus, I have chosen to accept and understand with the grace of love we have to heal, move forward, and share your love for all and all that surrounds. Be at peace. I know you are. I hear the silence so very loud, such a beautiful whispering sound. I'll hear you in the mountains, valleys, and towns. The river now runs through you, and your sun lights the sky. You once were my rock, but now you rest amongst the shore and deep within myself. Never to be forgotten or hush no more. We listen, and thank you for letting us be part of this. I will miss you, our gentle girl. No goodbyes, just a gentle nod. Until we meet again, where the river meets the ocean and the sky blankets this earth. I miss you, Julie, and I know everyone does.
Thanks. My name is Dave Miles, and it's nice to see everybody here. I didn't really write anything, so it might be kind of rambling, and it might be kind of shaky because it's just kind of coming right from the heart right now. But I've got two pieces I wanted to share. One was a memory moving down to New Mexico and being in Santa Fe, and Julie and I both. Julie was more of a kayaker than I was, and I was just learning how to kayak. But we decided to go up and run the race course section together. And we got up there and we were getting in the boats and sitting on the edge of the river. And we were both just kind of like, like, do you want to do this? Yeah? You sure? Well, so we got out of the boats and we got back in the car and we were driving down the highway. And then we were both just kind of like, fuck, I hate this. Now we're just going to be mad all day because we didn't do it. So we went back and did it. And it was just like, that was something that she always did for me, was she'll just kind of push me, even when I was kind of scared and nervous. You do it, I'll do it. And it was just a real nice thing that we helped give each other. And the other one is more of a moment that I got to have, and it was Julie sharing her family with me. And I went to school in Fort Collins, and I got to hang out with Richard and Jan and Grandpa. And it seemed like it was kind of a tradition or part of the routine. At the end of the night, we'd come home, eat dinner, clean up. We'd be on the sofa and we'd be watching the news. But then it would get over and we put on like Townes Van Zandt or someone else put on the record. And Enya and Richard would sit at each end of the sofa, and then they'd reach under the sofa and pull up a bottle of hand lotion, foot lotion, and then massage each other's feet. And we'd have like a finger or two of some whiskey, and it was just the warmest, nicest kind of memory to watch and share. And I loved that. And I remember sharing that with Julie. She's like, oh, yeah. And I felt like, oh, I got to see and be a part of something that she talked about and felt, and it was just really nice. So I miss her, and I thank her for being in my life, and it's good to see everybody.
But I think I'll do a little bit better with this than I did with the chalice lighting. Well, I'd like to think so, at least. Yeah, I'm Julie's nephew, and I had the privilege of helping her, I think, complete her move down to Dolores. I think she'd already been living there for a little while, and she still had some things in Denver, and she recruited me to come with her and drive down to Dolores and see her new living quarters. And there was a surprise, too, an adventure waiting at the end, which was this glorious backpacking trip we took after I had helped her move all her things. It was up to Ice Lakes down in that neck of the woods. If you haven't been there, I'd definitely recommend. You see the most Gatorade blue lakes you'll ever see. And it's only about 3 miles up to the lakes, too, so a relatively chill backpacking trip. But yeah, it was just a very memorable trip, and I think initially we worked and we moved furniture and set things up, and it was always a pleasure to be around her, but it was hard work. And then we got to the fun, and eventually, shortly after that, she said, oh, well, come meet my friends, and I got to see her new community down there, and her dog Shashi took a bit to warm up to me, as she does with most people, but I think by day 2 or 3 we were on decent terms. And then there was another exciting layer too, which was at some point she said, oh, there's someone else I want you to meet. I have this friend Andy, and so let's go over to his house for dinner. And we had a lovely time. And I think my other aunt, it must have been COVID. She has put on this Fringe Festival the past 5-6 years. I think some of you are familiar. And because of COVID, those performances were recorded. They were not live. And Julie, Andy, and I watched some skit or play for the Fringe Festival. And I think I had just graduated high school, and there was some more adult humor in this skit, but Julie was like, should I be showing you this? Is this okay? And I was like, I'm a high school graduate. What are you saying? But yeah, it was a lot of fun, and Andy was awesome, and I couldn't help but thinking to myself, is this just a friend, or is it more than that? And little did I know, a few months later, I think it was confirmed Julie and Andy were not just basic friends. So we floated down the Dolores River on a lovely day with blue sky, and I think I even had a beer at age 18 or 19. just had a blast, and that backpacking trip was incredible. And at the end of it, she shipped me off on a tiny airplane from the Cortez airport. I think it sat maybe, okay, 9 people. It was fun. It was exciting. Great views of Colorado, and it was really special and cool to see her in her new home, which I know she loved so much. So.
Hi. My name is Sarah. I'm going to cry. I'm sorry. I knew Julie so long ago. It was so long ago. And we were in high school together. And I remember with Kelly and Heather and Rochelle, we went skiing at A Basin. It was probably mid-May or June, who knows. But I've had that memory in my brain for 40 years. And I remember the sun was shiny blue. I've got one. I didn't know I would cry so much because it's kind of a shock. It really was. We graduated from high school and everybody kind of flew out of the nest and went their own way. And we just had this faith that everybody was going to be okay. And some people weren't okay, health, whatever. Everybody has their own troubles, but I do remember that blue sky.
So my name is Heather. My name is Heather Riley. I am a classmate of Julie's. I'm going to say longtime friend, not old friend. Longtime friend. Our families were friends. Our moms were friends. Our brothers were friends. Julie and I were friends. So I feel like there's friend connections. But I'm going to follow Sarah with the blue sky with sun. So I have a scarf that Anne, no surprise, creatively handmade. And the colors are blue and yellow. So blue sky and yellow sun. So I just have been flooded with memories, and sometimes they just appear out of nowhere. So in thinking about speaking, I thought about what Julie is, or what I want to keep with me, and that is light for me. There's something in Julie that there's this like a lilt, like a light that is Julie, like her laugh, her smile. It's light. It's familiar. I mean, I feel like I've known Julie forever, and so I carry that forward. I carry forward her light. What I think of is, so when I think of Julie, I think of water. I think of rivers. I think of the light on the water, just that sparkle. I think of music. I think of song. I think of, she was the one who elbowed me to audition for things. And she, when we were thinking of songs for auditions, she would say, oh, you know the one from Pippin, or you know the one from West Side. I was like, actually, I really don't. I don't know that one. But she did, like she knew all of them. She knew all of the songs, and I would just learn them from Julie. So that is who I remember being on stage with. It's who I remember being on the snow with. I remember skiing. I mean, so many times skiing, sunburn. Julie had a hat with the ears, and I don't know where she got. Maybe she got that from Ecuador. No sé. I don't know. So to me, Julie is light. She brought light forward for kids. She had a belief in all that was possible through culture, through language. She created Write Our World, which we talked about and talked about and talked about, and she presented at conferences. We presented together. It was the belief that in what was possible through language, through connection. So I am remembering light in Baja. I'm not a kayaker, but I kayaked in Baja, which is mellow and very beautiful. I remember her in desert. That light is Julie to me. She was a light to my daughter. I want to believe that my daughter was a light for her. And I called her Jules, so I think of her as a jewel and sparkling. Jules.
My name is Caroline Glidden, and was Carol DeSico, another high school friend, so seen a lot of them. So we were high school girls, and high school girls can be catty and things at times. And I was thinking back, and I can never remember Julie being like that. Someone mentioned it before. I cannot remember her speaking negatively or getting into any of that. What a beautiful soul. We were Bruce Springsteen buds, and went to at least one concert together, and spent the night, waiting for tickets, because we used to have to do that. You'd go and sleep out waiting for tickets. And I saw her with Heather too long ago. We had a nice dinner at your house once. We talked a few times. I wish I had seen her more. So it's the reminder to all of us to take the time to see the people more, make the time. You have the time. And the last thing that was, I don't even know where this came from, that connected us in high school. And I'll see if anyone here gets it. If you do, respond. Mana mana. Mana mana. Mana mana. Do 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 do. We would just say that so many times, and then when I saw her again in those years, it just came right back. So, what a beautiful light! What a beautiful soul.
Hi, I'm Julie Carey. I'm Julie's cousin. And I have a random, lovely, beautiful memory I'd love to share. We had just moved back, my family and I, from California, and my daughter Karen, who's here, who's now frighteningly 18, was probably 2 at the time. And Julie and I connected and decided, again randomly, to meet at the Children's Museum, of all places, with Karen in tow. And for those who know me, will not be a surprise. I was a pretty neurotic young mom. And the thought of meeting Julie and catching up with Karen, who was eating everything and into everything, and you all know that Children's Museum is chaos anyway, it was a lot. And I just remember apologizing and racing around and trying to get Karen settled, and she didn't say anything to me. I just remember this calm presence, her aura just pierced through, just landed on me. And I remember just saying and turning to her, I'm like, I'm being crazy right now, aren't I? This is nuts. None of this matters. And she just smiled, and it was not judgmental. It was not a judgmental word at all, but she just held me in that. And I just remember thinking, oh my gosh, I can take a big deep breath. And that is so powerful. That's so powerful. I just wanted to share that. Thank you.
I guess it's time for the cousins to speak. I'm Kit. I'm Julie's cousin. I'm originally from New York on the East Coast. We were the East Coast cousins, my sister and I, and Mark, Jeff, and Ann, and Julie were our Colorado cousins. And I always had friends who were surprised when they would say, "Are you close with your cousins?" And I would say, "Oh yeah." And they'd say, "But they live in Colorado. You hardly see them." But when we did see each other, we really connected. But Julie was so much younger that I had these sort of snapshot memories of her. And when I was thinking about that and thinking, what would I say about my relationship with Julie? Because I didn't know her that well. It came back to me that there was one experience I had with her. I think you might know about it, Anne. There was a point maybe 15 years ago where she was being offered a job with a company that did some sort of educational programming, curriculum development, and they wanted her. And they flew her, I lived in Maryland outside of Washington, D.C. They flew her to Maryland. This was in Rockville, I think. And she asked me to meet her for lunch because she wanted to talk about this and pick my brain about what it was like living there. And I just remember thinking, she told me all about this job and what they wanted her to do, and my thought was, well, yeah, you could do that. You got that. If you want it, go for it. And I was very encouraging. And I remember thinking, wow, it'd be so cool to have Julie living nearby me. And I thought I'd actually convinced her to take the job. She seemed like, she left, she went and had some interviews with them, she went back to Colorado. And then she called me and said, yeah, I decided not to do that. And sitting here today, I was thinking, well, I'm really glad that that's what she decided. And I was talking with Mark when I arrived yesterday, and I said to him, I was flying out here thinking about Julie, and I realized that if you'd asked me to describe her in one word, I never got to do a river trip with Julie, and I really regret that. But I heard about it, I saw the photos, I heard from family members who did get out on the water with her. And the one word that comes to my mind right away is badass. That woman was a badass. She got out there and did stuff that I don't know that I could do. And that was just her element. And I was so impressed by that. And I miss her.
You all are so orderly. You come up one at a time. Nobody's like clamoring or waiting in line.
Hi, I'm Janice. I was married to Mark, and we share two beautiful children, Emma and Dylan. And I just want to say thank you to Julie, because she was such a great auntie, and I think it was a sadness for her that she didn't have her own kids, but she really was involved in our kid's life, and Ollie knows about. And I remember after Mark and I got divorced, there's always tension with your family that you lost, and honestly, I stayed with Mark longer than I should have because I loved his family so much. But Mark and I are good friends. But I remember soon after we got divorced, Julie calling, and I could tell she was kind of nervous to call me, and she said, would it be okay if I took Dylan out for his birthday? And I said, of course, and I was so happy that she called, and every year on every birthday she would call, and sometimes she wanted to do things with them that made me a little nervous, like she took Dylan rock climbing when he was pretty young. But one of my favorite pictures of Dylan, I can just remember it so vividly, and you probably can too. It's of him going up the rock. He's almost at the top, and he's got this huge grin on his face. But and flying in the little airplane. I wasn't so sure about that. And she took Emma rafting on this long trip. It was her friends and their daughters, and Julie didn't have a daughter, so Emma got to be the daughter, and it was such an amazing experience for Emma. And I think as all of the Careys, my kids just love the outdoors and are very adventurous. They try things that I think maybe make them a little nervous, but they want to try it anyway, and I think a lot of that they learn from Julie.
Anyone else? Let's start the slideshow then.
Say it's here where our pieces fall in place. Any rain softly kisses us on the face. Any wind means we're running. We can sleep and see him coming. Where we drift and call it dreaming. We can weep and call it singing. Are strong enough. can hear when we're hollow, where we keep the light we're given. We can lose and call it living, where the sun isn't only sinking fast. Every night knows how long it's supposed to last, where the time of our lives is all we have, and we get a chance to say before we ease away, for all the love you've left behind, you can have mine. Say it's here where our pieces fall in place. We can fear 'cause the feeling's fine to betray, where our water isn't hidden. We can burn and be forgiven, where our hands hurt from healing. We can laugh without a reason, 'cause the sun isn't only sinking fast. Every moon in our bodies make shining glass, where the time of our lives is all we have, and we get a chance to say before we ease away, for all the love you've left behind, you can have mine.
Hey, so we're gonna play landslide tonight.
We've been practicing all night. Hopefully it goes well. We just wanted to show you what we've been working on.
Yeah, we feel like we've made some good progress in the last, it's been a couple hours, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we've been working hard. We thought you'd like it.
Yeah, my fingers hurt a lot. But
Yeah.
We'll give it a go.
We'll give it a go, yeah. All right, so landslide it is. Took my love and I took it down. Climbed a mountain and I turned around. And I saw my reflection in the snow-covered hills till the landslide brought me down. Oh, mirror in the sky, what is love? Can the child within my heart rise above? Can I sail through the changing ocean tides? Can I handle the seasons of my life? Well, I've been afraid of change. time makes you bolder. Even children get older. I'm getting older too. Oh, I'm getting older too. Take my love, take it down. Climb the mountain and I turn around, and I see my reflection in the snow-covered hills. So the landslide brings you down. And if you see my reflection in the snow-covered hills, the landslide brings you down. Oh, landslide, bring it down.
Nice work. That was
Yeah,
awesome.
that turned out all right.
That felt really good.
Yeah, it sure did.
As we move towards ending this celebration, I'd like to just share a few things that caught my attention, at least from the early part of our time together and some of the reflections from the family. Julie's birth came with paper airplane messages from a hospital window. She loaded a whole case of wine into her backpack and referred to marquee music. Julie always showed up as an auntie. And the Edward Abbey quote, "Come with me," the river said. "Drift with me toward the distant and legendary sea." We were dudes. Save it for Oprah. I think of Julie like a condor, soaring, watching, feeling the wind. Being sisters with Julie was everything. Coffee 30, sister speak. We called each other husband. We fought with determination, tenacity, and courage. It felt like harmony, equilibrium. Sister is the most beautiful word. Julie and Andy, a love story. A dory named Cottonwood. Should we just keep going all the way to the sea? The beginning of a summer of love. We ran to each other after separations. Every bit of well-used gear held many stories. Greta was her boat. Got to keep that Colorado edge. Get up and do something. Go where the rocks aren't. I missed you. I won the prize of a lifetime with our 6 years together. And the last thing that caught my attention from your sharing was, Julie was a badass. The elements of the cosmos came together. The stuff of the stars, and became Julie Carey. That precious human touched and shaped our common world, touched our lives. The force of her personality, the truth and the love of her life. This was part of the onward urge of evolving creation. We are, and we are more, because Julie lived. The tree of life, to which we often allude, is the symbolic tree of generation following generation. From time into time, we proclaim that the name Julie Carey has been written into the tree of life forever. Amen. I think we're doing a... Oh, we took that out? Okay, never mind.
Every moon in our bodies make shine.